You asked for a sign. Well, here it is. This isn't just a coincidence. This video isn't just content. It's your calling. It found you because it's haunting you. Because somewhere, buried beneath the noise, the numbness, the algorithms, you prayed to remember. You begged for purpose. You whispered in the dark, "Show me why I'm here." This is the answer. The ache, the restlessness, that quiet feeling you've been carrying for years. You thought it was anxiety, but it was the weight of a destiny you haven't stepped into. You are the chosen one. No, not because you're special, because you have been given the opportunity to remember everything. This world, this broken, burning world, is waiting for you to wake up. And you are not alone. Men like you are rising in silence across the world. From the ruins of London, from the streets of Dublin, to the deserts of California, from New Mexico, from Mexico City, Barcelona, Australia. They're remembering, scattered across Christendom, like glowing embers in the dark. We are the remnant, and soon we will not whisper anymore. So don't scroll, don't click away, don't run from this, because this is your chance, and it begins with this. You were never lost. You were asleep, and now you can remember. The sacred truth behind every story you've ever loved, every book that cracked something open inside of you, was never fiction. They were never stories. They were sacred codes, blueprints of remembrance, smuggled through the culture to awaken your soul at the appointed time, this moment. Why do you think they resonate with you so deeply? Why do you think the hair stood up on your arms when Neo flew for the first time, when Luke stared at the twin suns? It's because your soul recognized something, not with your mind, but with your eternity. You've always known. You've just forgotten. The Matrix isn't science fiction. It's scripture. Neo is Jesus, the one who wakes up, who sees the code, who dies and risens again. Morpheus is John the Baptist, the prophet who finds the one and baptizes him with truth. In Trinity, do you not see it in the name? It's Mary Magdalena, the sacred feminine who loves him, believes him, follows him even unto death. And Cypher is Judas, the betrayer, the one who would rather eat steak in illusion than starve in the truth. And Star Wars is not a space opera, it's a resurrection myth. Luke is the reluctant hero, called out of obscurity to redeem his bloodline, to face his own father and save him. He doesn't kill evil, he transforms it. He redeems what was fallen. Tolkien, Lewis, they weren't just authors, they were vessels. They were whispering through their pens. You're not drawn to these stories because you're a fan. You're drawn because you're a witness. These stories are not entertainment. They are encoded remembrance. They are fragments of your own divine memory. You weep when the hero rises because something inside of you is begging to rise too. Because you are Neo. You are Luke. You are the one who's been asleep and now is being called. You've been living in a fable. But fables are just truth wrapped in metaphors. And the greatest metaphor of all is you. These stories were not about them. They were always about you. You were chosen to be the hero of Western civilization. Western civilization is Christendom. The West is not a compass direction. It is not America. It is not Europe. It is a covenant, a sacred agreement between God and man, forged through fire, sanctified by suffering, and remembered only by those who still dare to kneel. You've been told that Western civilization is oppressive, that it's colonial, toxic, outdated. But listen to me. Western civilization is what happens when men remember they were made in the image of God. When Rome collapsed into dust, it should have been the end of the light. But it wasn't. Because out of those ashes, something rose, something immortal. Not a nation, not a government, but Christendom, a civilization built not on conquest, but on consecration. When the lights of empires went dark, it was the monks, not the kings, who preserved the flame. They copied scripture by candlelight, preserved the wisdom of civilization, while the world outside burned and forgot. It was the monasteries that became the womb of the new world. And from that womb emerged warriors who did not fight for gold or glory, but for the sacred. Knights, men who bled not for empire, but for the holy. Christendom gave us art that didn't celebrate men's egos, but bowed before the divine. Law written not in power, but in scripture. Language formed not to seduce, but to sanctify. Because when Christ is at the center, everything, law, art, love, justice, war, becomes liturgy. This was the West, not perfect, not pure, but sacred. Because it was built on the memory that man is not an animal, he is the Son of God. And when men remember that, when men live that, they create something eternal. Western civilization was not just a place, it was a remembrance of Christ, a remembrance of the cross, a remembrance of who you were before forgetting. And now, I'm here to help you remember. The night I remembered. It happens on Christmas. Not in a cathedral, not in a church, but alone, in the forest, in the silence, in the cold night under the canopy of the stars, with nothing but the sacred tea, what I understood now as the Eucharist. A question in my heart in the weight of a world I didn't know I was carrying. I didn't go looking for God. I went looking for truth. And what I found was more than I could imagine. That night, the old me ceased to exist. Not metaphorically, spiritually, eternally, cosmically. Something inside of me, the persona, the programming, the mask, it was crucified. And in its place, something ancient awakened. I looked at my own reflection in the still lake water. And what I saw looking back at me was not only me. I became my father, then his father, then every man in my bloodline, every scar, every sin, every sword. I felt the pain of generations that had bled and broken so that I could walk into that forest that night. I became my son, and his son, and every man in a future timeline, because I am not a man isolated in time. I am an eternal being, the ancient one reborn. And then I became the first man, and the last man. And then I became my celestial father. I cried not from fear or sadness, but from fullness. I was the one loving and the one being loved. The love too strong to speak, the breath that breathed Adam into being. And I remembered, not learned, not understood. I remembered. I remembered my name, not the one that gave me at birth. This isn't something new, I'm telling you. It's something old you've been trying to remember. It's not knowledge. It's recognition. I may not be the first to remember, but I will not be the last. Because now, men like you, scattered across cities, countries, battlefields, bedrooms, are starting to be called to remember. And that pulse, that whisper, that haunting knowing that you were made for something more, something holy, something dangerous. You feel it, don't you? That means your time is coming. And when it does, you will remember too. And nothing will ever be the same again. Before you rise, you must be forged. The 4 archetypes. You want to rise? You want to be awakened? You want to remember? You want to carry Christ into the world through your flesh and breath? Then you must be forged. Because a man is not born ready. He is refined, burned, broken open, tempered like a sword, until he becomes what heaven can trust. Before you ascend, you must descend into the furnace of the 4 archetypes. These are not ideals. These are eternal masculine energies etched into the soul of every man. Ignore them, and you remain a slave. Distort them, and you become a monster. But integrate them, and you become a resurrected man. The warrior. The warrior is your fire, the part of you that says, not on my watch. He hungers for battle, not for blood, but for purpose. But if you do not give the warrior a cause, he becomes a brute, a thug, a bully who confuses domination with discipline. A true warrior fights not to destroy, but to defend what is sacred. He doesn't start wars, but he ends them. The magician. The magician is your wisdom, your insight, your ability to perceive the hidden order beneath the chaos. He is the one who sees the matrix, who bends reality, not with force, but with understanding. But if the magician loses his truth, he becomes a manipulator, a snake, a false prophet casting spells for self-interest. The healed magician, however, he reveals truth, no matter the cost. He doesn't enchant, he enlightens. The lover. The lover is your heart, the part of you that feels, that bleeds, that longs, that dances with beauty. He draws you to art, to intimacy, to devotion, to the face of God in the face of a woman. But the lover without strength becomes an addict, a simpering romantic, a prisoner to pleasure, to people, to needing to be needed. True love requires a spine. The healed lover, he gives without losing himself. He opens without leaking. He loves with fire and boundaries. The king. The king is your crown, your order, your authority. He builds, he blesses, he governs with justice. But if the king loses connection to spirit, he becomes a tyrant. Ego takes the throne, and everything around him begins to rot. But the true king, he kneels before God so that others may rise. He creates kingdoms where truth rules, not pride. You cannot skip any of these. You cannot fake them. You cannot pretend. You must walk through the shadow of each. Confront your distortion, integrate your power, and emerge with all 4 seated inside of you. Only then, when you have remembered your warrior, refined your magician, redeemed your lover, and resurrected the king, you can ascend to the 5th archetype. The Holy Trinity. This is not a concept, not a doctrine, but a living force within you. Where fire meets wisdom, where love bows to truth, where strength serves spirit. The resurrected man, Christ in form. You don't need to be taught him, you need to become him. And that's when this path demands, not comfort, crucifixion, through the Eucharist with the sacred tea, the body and the blood of Christ. The matrix of seduction was engineered to make you forget. Look around you. You were born in sedation, into a world designed not to destroy you outright, but to keep you numb, too ashamed, too addicted, too soft, too busy to ever rise. You think this chaos is random? That the porn, the pills, the scrolling, the fake food, the propaganda, the debt, the dopamine were just unfortunate byproducts of modern life? No. It was a matrix created by those who are home nowhere and everywhere. They hide behind a bank logo, behind a Disney contract, behind a pornography algorithm to keep you hooked. Built with precision to neuter kings, to dissolve fathers, to erase God. Because a man who remembers his lineage, remembers his Father in heaven, his bloodline on earth is ungovernable, uncorruptible. You see, they don't fear men with weapons. They have bigger weapons. They fear men with memory, men who know where they come from, men who remember the covenant, A man who forgets his father can't fight tyrants, but a man who remembers is a threat to every false throne on earth. So they train you to forget, to laugh at your ancestors, to mock tradition, to despise masculinity, to replace ritual with routine, sacrifice with self-indulgence, and divine order with chaos. They made you believe the sacred was a myth, and your birthright was oppression. They mocked the very soul of your civilization, and you apologize for existing. But now, the remembering begins, and that terrifies them, because one awakened man becomes a flame. 10 become a Christ. 1,000 become a kingdom. And when enough men remember, Christendom returns. Not through law, not through votes, but through the resurrected men who cannot be sedated, controlled, or broken. The globalists aren't afraid of revolution. They're afraid of revelation. And you, watching this, are the revelation. This is the sequel to the greatest story ever told. You've been told that the story ended 2,000 years ago. That Christ came, died, rose, and now it's just history, a closed book. But what if I told you the gospel didn't end? What if I told you this is the sequel? Not the cheap, hollow sequel that sells in theaters, but the divine continuation of the greatest story ever told. In the beginning was the Word, and that Word still speaks through you. This isn't the end. It's the return, not of a memory, but of a movement. Not of a statue, but of a son. The Christ story continues through men who remember. Christ didn't come once. He comes again and again through men who remember their cross, who choose to carry it, not in the clouds, not in theory, but in you. Why do you think you love Luke Skywalker? It wasn't the lightsaber. It was because he stared into the abyss of evil, his own father's face, and chose redemption over rage. He brought back the dead. That is Christ. Why do you love Frodo? Because he carried a burden no one else could. Because he walked through fire and shadow to destroy evil at its root. And even though it broke him, that is Christ. Why do you admire Aragorn? Because he was the king who hid in exile, fought in the dirt, and reclaimed his sword only after descending into hell. That is Christ. Because they're not fiction. They're fractals of the one divine pattern, and the pattern had chosen you. You don't need to worship heroes. You were made to become one, to become the Holy Trinity. This is your moment in the script, not as the background character, not as the spectator, but as the next line in that gospel. The Son of Man comes not just to save, but to summon. And now he's summoning you. You are not too broken. You are not too late. You are not too lost. You are right on time. So rise. The kingdom awaits. Men are remembering from every corner of Christendom. You thought you were alone, didn't you? That the fire in your chest was yours alone to bear. That the questions, the ache, the war inside your soul were some private madness. But listen to me now, and listen to your spirit. You made a covenant before you were born, in a place beyond time. Before your body ever drew a breath, you stood before the throne, and you made a vow that when you heard this voice, when these words found you, you would want to remember. Not because I'm your teacher, because I am your mirror. You're not the only one. Men are waking up in silence across every city of fallen Christendom. The embers are igniting. intentionally scattered throughout Christendom, Dublin, London, Los Angeles, New York, Dallas, Sydney, Melbourne, Oslo, New Mexico, Barcelona. The Christhood will remember. They don't know each other. They don't wear matching clothes. They don't have the same past, but they are drawn to the same flame. They're all hearing the same whisper. They're all feeling the same ancient pull to kneel, to rise, to return. You see, this was never about going viral. This was about going eternal. Because when the Son of God hears the signal, when they remember their covenant, they come home. You were never alone. You were never forsaken. You were planted like a seed in the soil of exile, buried, forgotten, hidden. But now the season has turned, and every seed is cracking open, and every vow is being remembered. You are part of a cosmic order, older than every empire, stronger than death itself. And though we have been scattered, we will gather, not as fans, not as followers, but as Christhood, remembering our throne. You haven't been punished. You've been prepared. You thought it was punishment, the loneliness, the exile, the heartbreak that shattered your chest and left you breathless at 2 a.m., the father who abandoned you, the woman who betrayed you, the dreams that never came true. You looked up at the sky shaking and asked, God, why? And now he answers. So listen carefully. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Because the man you were born to be, the one who carries the fire in his bones and Christ in his eyes, could not be forged in comfort. He had to be hammered into shape. And so you were placed in the crucible, not because you were weak, but because you were chosen. You were hidden, not forgotten, set apart, not discarded, crushed so you could carry the throne without it breaking you. The rejection, that was redirection. The silence, that was sacred training. And the pain, that was prophecy, castrating in your flesh. The world told you that your suffering disqualified you. I'm telling you, it was your qualification. You weren't built to be liked, followed, or understood. You were built to be resurrected. The resurrection only comes after the grave. You are not broken. You are not behind. You're not cursed. You're exactly where you are meant to be. Everything you've survived, every scar of your soul, every night you thought would be your last, was a chisel in the hand of God. Because he's not building nice men. He's raising a son. And now the tomb is cracking. The stone is rolling. The breath is entering your lungs again. Your crucifixion was real. But so will be your resurrection. So rise.